Harold.
Well, hello, Mac.
How are you
Glad
today?
to see you.
Boy, I haven't seen you since I was Finney. Boy, looks
right.
good to see an old friend. Say, is my husband here, Gene here today?
Yes, he's here today.
Well, look, how do you think his chances? Is there any chance of getting a little talking picture of him? We got all our sound equipment.
A talking picture?
Yeah, we got all the sound equipment right here in the truck. Bring the stuff in, Anthony. Right in here. Hurry up and unload it now.
You want a talkie of him?
Yeah, we want to get a talkie of him.
Well, Mr. Gandhi is one of the most difficult subjects in the world for a talkie. He has a very feeble voice. And moreover, he has a very deep prejudice against being photographed at all. If England does not grant your demands, what course of action will you follow then?
Of course, civil disobedience and all other phases of satyagraha are always at our disposal, but whether we shall resort to this weapon immediately or what other steps we shall take, I cannot judge at present.
If England grants your demands, Mr. Gandhi, do you intend to have complete prohibition in the new Indian state?
Oh, yes.
Absolute prohibition?
Absolute.
And do you intend also, if India wins its independence, to abolish child marriages?
I should very much like to, even before.
Do you expect England this time will give India full self-government?
That also is more than I can say.
But you are hopeful.
I am an optimist.
You are an optimist. If you go to the second round table conference, will you go attired in native Indian dress or will you prefer European dress?
I shall certainly not be found in European dress. And if the weather permitted, I should present myself exactly as I am today.
Yes. And if the King of England invited you to dinner at Buckingham Palace, you would go in your customary Indian dress?
In any other dress, I should be most discourteous to him. Because I should be artificial.
If England does not grant your demand, are you prepared to return to jail again?
I am always prepared to return to jail.
Would you be prepared to die in the cause of India's independence?
It is a bad question.
In order to plan where we're going, we must first understand where we've been. In today's technologically heavy society, we have more opportunities than ever to learn from those who came before us, especially in the area of leadership. Mohandas Gandhi was born October 2nd, 1869. For 3 generations, the Gandhis were prime ministers in several Kathiawad states. As a child through his elementary school days, into high school, he was a mediocre student. Mohandas as a child was obedient and respectful to a fault, even claiming himself that he was blind to the faults of elders, and that he had learnt to carry out the orders of elders, not to scan their actions. In 1888, at age 18, Gandhi headed to England to pursue an education in law. In his life, this was the first time his willpower and loyalty were truly tested. Having made a vow to his mother to adhere to the Hindu practices and observe a vegetarian diet, Gandhi was tempted by the extravagance of London and the more contemporary styles of cuisine available as opposed to his life in India. He was judged and questioned by friends and strangers alike because he would not partake in steak dinners or other meat dishes. Gandhi tells the story in his autobiography, The Story of My Experiments in Truth, of his close friend and mentor, Dr. Mehta, of how he was pressured by his friends and proclaimed brother to more fully immerse himself in British culture, which was Gandhi's intention. But to do so, Dr. Mehta admonished him for steadfastness to vegetarianism. What is the value of a vow made before an illiterate mother and in ignorance of conditions here? It is no vow at all. I would not be regarded as vow in law. It was pure superstition to stick such a promise, and I tell you in this persistence will not help you to gain anything here. You confess to have eaten and relished meat. You took it where it was absolutely unnecessary, and will not where it is quite essential. What a pity, his friend told him. This was not his first nor his last taste of judgment and misunderstanding. But it's important to note, as this type of dedication to principle will shape his life and his legacy. After some setbacks in beginning a law practice in India, and trying to do a favor for his brother put him at odds with one of the key barristers in his district, it was evident to Gandhi that practicing law in the current state of affairs in India was going to be a struggle. He learned an important lesson about politics and about staying true to the truth. He left his wife and family behind and headed to South Africa. In Gandhi's autobiography, he talks about his insisting on first-class passage from Bombay to South Africa, and refuses to travel on the deck as he felt it was beneath him. A much different Gandhi from what we know today. His humility and patience would be forged through the struggle for freedom and equality in South Africa, and cemented in his native India as he would fight without violence for the freedom of India. His experiences in South Africa taught him the power of humility, and it's also where he developed the idea of Satyagraha. Satyagraha, truth, love, and nonviolence. Importantly, Satyagraha is more than just civil disobedience. As in Gandhi's view, passive resistance could easily change into active resistance and thus violence. Rather, in his conceptualization, respect for the other party was central, and all kinds of violence was forbidden, absolutely. When Gandhi returned to India in 1915, he went to work for the Secretary of the Congress. Always the astute observer, Gandhi recognized several things that troubled him down deep. The prominence of English as the official language in Congress didn't create a barrier to understanding for Gandhi as he was fluent in English, but for the people of India who were not, could not understand their government, and that realization was quite troublesome. Also, the inefficiency of the government, using resources with no regard, while the people of India suffered in oppression and poverty. Such was life in the English colony. In 1919, Gandhi began consolidating influence by appealing not just to the Hindu in India, but also to the large Muslim population as well, who were also being persecuted, and acted as a type of spokesperson during the Caliphate movement. His influence over the non-Brits in India was so strong that he was able to persuade the masses through action and calm requests to enter into a spirit of non-cooperation, but non-violence. The more Britain tried to quell the uncomfortable protests with violence, the more steadfast the people of India grew. Gandhi himself, beaten, imprisoned, showed love and compassion for his oppressors, and encouraged his people to do the same. Britain responded with such an overwhelming force, arresting thousands of people and killing hundreds across the country. The British then tried to set up a government to run India that had no Indian members of the government, and Gandhi began to organize again, turning his focus to the salt tax. In a throwback to the successful revolution against the colonization of America, Gandhi set out on his salt march, marching 241 miles to the salt mines to make salt himself. The British government, furious at this spectacle, again responded in massive arrests and brutal force. But the people of India were solidified in their support not just for Gandhi, but for Indian freedom, and just as Gandhi couldn't be swayed in so many aspects of his life, his followers shared their steadfastness. Gandhi, just like any leader, wasn't without his failures, but his biggest disappointment was that for all his work to peacefully unify India as an independent state, in the end, Hindu, Sikhs, and Muslims would not live together in harmony, but instead split up the Indian country and created Pakistan, where the Muslims would all move. In the first few days of the Indian Independence Act, there was a movement of millions across borders, and 500,000 died in communal riots. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was assassinated on January 30th, 1948, by a Hindu extremist who was against the nonviolence that Gandhi taught and part of an extremist group that was strongly against the creation of Pakistan. The rift between Pakistan and India continues to this day to be one of the most dangerous and hotly contested international borders in the world. Although Gandhi wasn't able to insist the nonviolent values that created Indian independence of Britain through to India and Pakistan, his legacy continues to live on in protest of the oppressed in all different cultures across the globe. One of the most fascinating things about Gandhi's leadership style when he returned to India was that, unlike so many leaders who sit at the top of mountains and give orders to their followers, Gandhi gave up his worldly possessions and put the native people of India on his shoulders to carry them forward. The servant leader must empower followers instead of using power to dominate them. Gary Uckel. There's no question that Gandhi was a servant leader in the traditional sense of the term. He was also a spiritual leader. And according to Uckel, spiritual leadership describes how leaders can enhance the intrinsic motivation of followers, created conditions that increase their sense of spiritual meaning in the work. Gary Uckel. Breaking down Gandhi's leadership beyond that becomes quite difficult in technical terms. His impact and effectiveness, the outcome, are all very powerfully known and discussed today. But he led by example. He embodied the phrase he made popular, "Be the change you seek in the world." But his goal was quite simple. His methods quite simple. Famed leadership author Dr. John Maxwell published the 21 Laws of Leadership. There are two laws that Gandhi best exemplified. They are the law of influence and the law of sacrifice. Today, when we hear about sacrifice in the realm of leadership, we think of the CEO who takes a $1 salary for his struggling company. It's not a very common theme among leaders today who are routinely noted as extremely wealthy, living in castles, mansions, or big white houses. But a lot of sacrifice had to come before reaching those places. From the CEO that built his company from the ground up to the politician who had to shake millions of hands to secure such an opportunity. However, the type of sacrifice Gandhi gave up time and time again was incredibly special. He sacrificed his birthright to become a part of the Prime Minister's offices, sacrificed by adhering to a strict vegetarian diet, gave up his worldly possessions, and on several occasions sacrificed his body with public beatings, his freedom, and ultimately his life. He was willing to sacrifice all these things so his people could be free. The law of influence. But it is the law of influence that Gandhi excels in. In one of the most legendary books ever written, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill praises Gandhi's ability by saying, "He came by power through inducing over 200 million people to coordinate with mind and body in a spirit of harmony for a definite purpose." In brief, Gandhi has accomplished a miracle, for it is a miracle when 200 million people can be induced, not forced, to cooperate in a spirit of harmony. Tony Robbins, the ultimate motivator and speaker on leadership, sales, and personal achievement, refers to Gandhi as he has in this slide from a presentation on leadership he gave at Harvard in April of 2012. In closing, I leave you with two of the most noticeable names in American history. One a civil rights leader that followed Gandhi's game plan. The other benefited from the lessons of Gandhi and capitalized on the opportunities that the civil rights leader created for him.
The person who has influenced my life in terms of action more than anybody is Mahatma Gandhi.
And with a man whose message of love and justice endures, the father of your nation, Mahatma Gandhi. For me and Michelle, this visit has therefore held special meaning. You see, throughout my life, including my work as a young man on behalf of the urban poor, I've always found inspiration in the life of Gandhi ji and his simple and profound lesson to be the change we seek in the world. And just as he summoned Indians to seek their destiny, he influenced champions of equality in my own country, including a young preacher named Martin Luther King. After making his pilgrimage to India a half-century ago, Dr. King called Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance the only logical and moral approach in the struggle for justice and progress. So we were honored to visit the residence where Gandhi and King both stayed, Mani Bhavan, and we were humbled to pay our respects at Rajghat. And I'm mindful that I might not be standing before you today as President of the United States had it not been for Gandhi and the message he shared and inspired with America and the world.